This is called Earthly Things. In the dip of my suspension bridge heart lies a letter to my next incarnation. It contains secrets once held in my cavities, now paused, hanging in the negative space, lodged between beginnings like foodstuff in one's teeth. As non-memories become, only earthly things matter now. First words, chopsticks, rosaries, goosebumps, life's details encrypted into non-consciousness and awaiting translation. We seek divinity, not knowing it's here in our lungs and dirty laundry. We need only unravel our harrowed orbits and lay flat to dry. Thanks. Shapeshifter. I was born with my tongue split in three. Bisaya was my grandma's love and breakfast, syllables falling like crackers into my lap, a language you need a metronome to speak. My father brought me his gift from the city, Tagalog. Laughing and booming, we'd scat freely and sing like jazz dreams. My mother was astute. She taught me English. She taught me to measure circles, studying their paths through air, through time. Diaspora, such a sweet-sounding word. Borrowed from Greek, a soft puff of air through rounded lips sends us scattered, far from home. Words change shape when they enter a language from another, accommodate native rhythms, raise our children. We changed our shapes too, straightened our hair, lightened our skin, stitched our beautiful split tongues into one bulky, unnatural lump. I grew up an ocean apart from my grandmother's kitchen, shape-shifting to fit, straining to catch the syllables of whatever the fuck my parents were fighting about this time, fiddling with my mind's radio to find those unremembered melodies, buried deep now in a bleak sea of static. Foreigner, a mess of rounded edges in her own home. I used to live here. In a yellow dream house that swelled like bubblegum in summer, I flung my helium soul up on a string above, a solemn thing to float against a plastic sky, while below my body stubbornly sank upon stubbornly solid ground. Rose bushes growing wild with my mother's disapproval. A door, the shade of darkened moss, airtight to trap the inhale of a world held beyond its breath. My bubbling soul sweltering, festering restlessly, waiting to happen. In a pale yellow house with shutters green, I dreamed of love. Played piano in the foyer, spread homework like butter across countertops, whispered into pillows late, my childhood on a bookshelf, a self-contained in life's debris. The yellow house with shutters green stood on a street named Song, bracing valley gusts and tight-lipped chill, built inside a hot balloon of lemon summers, debt and dreams, untrimmed roses, green of greed, plunging markets, faceless cards and faceless banks, who in time ensnared the yellow house that swelled with everything in it. Thank you.
Feathers and sweetgrass. The rosemary in my garden is talking. It recalls beginning as a small twig I snapped and stuck in the ground. Now evergreen and periwinkle spread wide across a wooden fence. The plants have stories to tell, if we would just listen. Autumn brings quince in remembrance of my grandmother's hands dancing with a paring knife. Summer's jasmine and rose echo my mother's scent, remind me what it feels like to be loved so deeply. I enter a land where a woman wears an angel's face. She is rain, she is breath, she is nectar. Her showers turn fields from brown to green. When I drown in doubt, she braids my stray strands as if sweetgrass into medicine. She listens, knows strength comes from the telling. What can I offer in return? Her gifts are like air, like earth beneath my feet. What can I offer the earth? I string beads of gratitude on sinew, fly high on wings she pumps with pink feathers. And as I touch the clouds, she becomes the sky. Mot du Pue, gratitude. She wears an exit wound near the back of her neck, where a soft-lipped kiss should lay, nestled under curves of soft curls, a small round door from which life might have drained. She'd misread red flags as red carpet, mistook insistence for invitation. He claimed it was an accident. He was drunk, just playing, bullet gliding, just millimeters from her carotid, just milliseconds between heartbeat and last breath. She wears a scar from an entry wound at the front of her neck, touches it like a talisman as she gives thanks for a meal, for the hands that made the meal, for the rooster announcing the day, for the air she breathes. Gratitude dances on her fingertips as she touches the scar, entry wound from a bullet that spared her. She wears a scar, touches it like a talisman, breathes gratitude between each heartbeat. May it be. This gift of waking is the same, but gathering twigs and cooking by flame impacts the earth more softly than our modern morning rites. Symphonic swell of birdsong paints a crisper air than highway hum. Dear atom, dear molecule, remind me we are still made of stardust, as fire ash fills our lungs and green-scented mornings are sacrificed to avarice and ease. How, sweet sun, do I share the secrets of centuries when monarchs' migrations teeter on extinction in our lifetime? How do I light candles, praise forward-flowing ties, generation to generation, as if guaranteed? I thrill to see the timeless glow of love in your young eyes, delight as you taste the sweetness of heirloom figs, see wonders strung like rosaries. I want to become an ocean, buoy the future, seaweed swirling like a bomba skirt around my waist, plankton glistening on my skin. I pray to quell rising seas that swallow islands. I pray that grass sprouts on scorched hills. I pray for the monarch, the rhino, sea turtle, lemur. I pray for theirs healing, so that you, querido hijo, may know the vastness of the sky's blue and the fullness of the river's length. Thank you.
High summer. In the year of the water rabbit, tall dry grasses swirl, lapping wind, weight of hooves. Raven and hawk circle and hunt. Gopher, deer mouse, shrew mole, dreams. The drip of beard lichen from branches, the burst of yellow bird's foot trefoil, bristly ox tongue. I scan my legs for ticks, pick burrs from my socks, unsubtle these reminders of explorations, intrusions. Last week in Ireland, in light rain, I walked counterclockwise around a holy well. I knelt and cupped my right hand, brought water to my face, my heart, thanked the river for all it had given. But we have made our gods fickle and withholding. To the east are floods, to the north fires. For the moment, Here, I am safe. Grateful for the fog that burns slowly over Tamales Bay. In the autumn, elders and school children will gather, plant and seed native growth to restore the creek bed, hold the water, soften the scars of men. Soon, I think, I may walk this line, feel the slick of mud, relish the quick return of insects, the slow growth of hope. Symbiosis. Human boundaries distinguished by gate and barb, wood and rust. Crickets rub seemingly silently. The whistle songs of lesser goldfinches fill the air. Last week, a fox ate a chicken. Poor Marcia, dear Marcia, lucky fox. As a child, I was warned of rattlesnake and bear, remote Siskiyou cabin, coffee pot crushed by an unseen Ursus, a caution kept in the kitchen. The oldest of the cousins were taught to shoot in defense. The youngest, how to act big, stay calm. I do not remember being scared, not of bear. Seeking insects, foraging bears tear apart logs, dig plants and roots from the ground, assist in decomposition. They shit berries, acorns, fruit, and distribute seeds. Black bears used to be here, then we hunted them out. But last year one was seen across this narrow bay, scat and scratches on trees. Now a friend asks me to confirm his suspicions, shows me photos of shit, thick and brown, almost cow-like. I bring out my book. We scan the photos. Like hagiologists, we hope to confirm a minor miracle. I vacillate between elk and black bear with an acorn diet, thinking, it is too early for acorns. I realize too early, too late, too hot, too dry. These are all meaningless now. Nearby, a tree twists around itself, allows another to grow inside. As the sun sets in the overgrown bramble, I reach past thorns to pick ripe blackberries, juice on tongue, stain on hands. Between the storms. It is the 10th day of Christmas, 10 lords a-leaping, the ground is green. So green the hand aches to pet it, to coax the lush into staying longer than it should, like me, here, overstaying my inspiration. Storms have brought dried branches down, orange lichen, green lichen, new shoots, willow buds, common cat's ear, subterranean clover. The huppah has been taken down. The eucalyptus are peeling. In Japan 2 days ago, a tsunami warning. Poseidon means Lord of the earth, not just over water. He rules over dry land, known as earth shaker, stabilizer. 10 lords a-leaping. He is angry. He is frustrated. He is bored. He is. High winds have brought high surf. From this hilltop, I can see the chopping water of Tamales Bay. Imagine a life on the water, near the water, of the water. No, I can simply imagine a different life, wet, lush, and in season. The stag. The stag has entered my yard, looking for my nasturtiums, the ones I pull like weeds each May, the ones that first delight, then take over and wonderfully suffocate the oxalis, which, if I'm honest, I would like to see wiped out. My earth dug and cleansed of each of their oxalis seeds, and if I am honest, I am not too proud of this pure, simple hate of a plant, even though it chokes my dreams of a yard that can thrive in drought, nurture robust blooms, and feed the bees and my soul. The stag with his young horns in peak adolescence, walking slow and solitary, has entered my yard, bent with the same relaxed pace to press his brown and black mouth down to the green and yellow and orange of my nasturtiums and eat the leaves as if they were left just for him, as if this were his land and I the interloper, as if I had taken months to prepare this feast of flowers just for his palate. And in many ways, I had. The stag has entered my yard, holding my gaze while he pisses on the remnants of a cherry tree before moving to the nasturtiums that once filled me with pride, having raised them from seed to start to blossom. I did not know they would need so little to burst forth and spread. The yellow and orange and sometimes crimson petals swirling around the jade, climbing the ficus. I learned from these plants what I couldn't in so many of my relationships. I could have given less of myself, and they would have been just fine. The stag has entered my yard uninvited, but I am grateful. He has stopped my breath, brought wonder in exchange for flowers. I fear his horns. I ache to touch him.
Elephants. Elephants. Did you know elephants pray to the moon? I look up at Annika, jostled out of my head. She is full of information, full of stories about this world. She has told me about frogs and whales and antelope. In contrast, I always feel empty and unknowing. Her words are what fill me up. At camp, I am made interesting only by my association with her. We have done what we always do. Hop the gray wire fence when the nature camp counselors aren't looking and the other kids have become too much. We stretch out our bodies in the grass under the sun, taking up all the space we want. I've only met Annika the week before, but we've already taken to calling ourselves best friends in that easy way that children do. I feel like she knows everything about me, though I actually tell her very little. But Annika talked enough for the both of us, and when I would agree or disagree in my mind, I always felt like she could tell. Now, I think that maybe Annika just needed someone to listen, and I needed space to be in my own head, and we were lucky to find in each other someone who allowed for what we needed. I shake my head in reply, imagining a group of elephants calling out to the moon, their trunks collectively raised like an offering. My mom told me, Annika says. She read it somewhere. This was how many of what we then thought were facts came, first to Annika, then to me. I was usually the first kid to be dropped off and the last to be picked up, so I had seen Annika's mom many times, a petite white woman with brown hair and piercing eyes, as if she were cataloging everything. She seemed overwhelmed by the sparkling bigness of her brown daughter, trying to tamp down the space Annika took up. When I would see her, I found it hard to reconcile her presence with the larger-than-life woman who appeared in Annika's stories. In real life, she seemed a little more ordinary, a little less big. On that last day of camp, our focus was on the pale white orb that sat visible in the sky, despite daylight still touching everything in sight. We pretended to be the elephants of our imagination, blowing trumpet sounds with our mouths and raising our arm trunks in tribute. We giggled, spinning and stomping our feet in the grass. Annika tried to stay in touch. We exchanged addresses and our parents' phone numbers. She wrote me a letter or two. But our dynamic didn't work when we weren't seeing each other in person. I would imagine my responses to her, dreaming up conversations in my mind, but I never sent anything back. For the rest of that summer, I still thought of her as my best friend. Once, it had seemed impossible, but it's true. Elephants don't exist anymore. There is so much to grieve these days. I don't know where Annika is, if she stayed big and bright and brilliant. I do know that the sun is too hot and the water too scarce and the air too suffocating for anything like a nature camp to exist now. But often, in the cocoon of my mind, I think of a time when two girls living very different lives pretended to be elephants worshiping the moon, and everything felt like it was as it should be.
Have I told you that I'm tired of writing poems that end with body parts splashed across the page, that begin where some otherwise wasted town in rural Nebraska manufactured the small parts of 1,000-pound bombs so the children would have food on the table and roofs over their heads? China Camp Elegy. The pier will not be rebuilt. The harvest uprooted, burnt to the ground, people dispersed or buried under rubble, as if rubble were nothing more than the latest New York Times crossword. Shrimp dried 140 years ago survive in their original containers in Chinatowns across the land. Can you believe that? If you believe these headlines, much less the body of the text, you are a fool. And I swim out into the polluted bay, lapping around the bare pilings, diving and searching for some remnant of the village, buried and exhumed for our diversion, buried and risen with the tide. Promise. Arachne Ananse, you settle on my bathroom wall, stare back from a world of nameless fears. I hold my breath, promise myself I will not threaten you. Flamethrower, white phosphorus, 1,000-pound bomb. Every moment I wait for you to make a move. I search for signs of an hourglass. You change position, rest this time on the mirror. I hold back, you in the corner of my eye, spin a silken vow I hope I can keep.
Fire followers. 5 months after the fire, visitors to burned hillsides talked about a plant they'd never seen before, the whispering bells. Eminenthe penduliflora, the lone species in its genus, requires the heat of wildfire to rise from seeds hidden for years. California's chaparral country, canyons stacked with fuel, only noticed by outsiders when the winds throw flame across the ridges. After the rainfall of the winter months, charred branches point towards endings. The shattered soil holds a different story. New stem and leaf, then inflorescence. The Jepson taxon page, precise and dry, calls the calyx lobes bell-shaped, glandular, yellow or white, hairy, persistent in age, withering, papery, enclosing fruit. No mention of how the bells whisper, until I turn to the cowscape page. A rustling sound when a breeze comes through, describing those persistent aging lobes hanging along the tough, sticky stems, each fruit waiting to become a seed, patiently standing through the dry season, dropping back to earth among sisters, dreaming for years before the next fire. Each eminenthe seed, flat, wide elliptic, brown, surfaced honeycombed, holding the memory of the landscape. Those fresh yellow bells of May are not the ones that whisper. I will return to hear for myself their rustling sound in the season we call September.
Talons on the necks of the patriarchy. I'm reading for Dani Burlison. By the time your eyes meet the ink on this page, I'll be living in a cabin in the forest. My own little Baba Yaga hut up the hill in the redwoods. A cluster of bone chimes clicking in the breeze, just across the clearing in my neighbor's magical herb garden. I'm writing from the future, after which I've left my home, my children's childhood home of 2 decades. Priced out of the only affordable neighborhood in my former little city, sent by myself to the woods to live out my destiny as a spinster forest witch. I'm only half joking about the destiny bit. In my old yard, I leave behind treasures buried in the earth, witch bottles and railroad spikes, herb bundles and black tourmaline wrapped in linen, chili powder and black salt sprinkled in our driveway to keep my volatile landlord away. Our pet turtle, Shelley's grave, is somewhere underneath the jasmine vines. Daisy, my daughter's beloved hen, buried near a fig tree in the backyard. Cotton and beaded bracelets from ceremonies woven into the soil under the herbs I planted, with big heart-shaped stepping stones nearby. The ashes of spells burned under full moons, small bottles of water charged under the eclipsed sun, sigils written into footpaths and hidden doorways. With cascarilla chalk to protect us all. Years of potion making in the cramped kitchen. And the non-treasures, too. Rat nests in the ceiling and walls, black mold in the bedroom closet, paint peeling from leaks in the attic, and faulty wiring fizzing with the click of the light switch. Burnt oak leaves that found their way into my yard from one of the numerous nearby wildfires. Displacement from a home and a community you love, a place you could drive backwards blindfolded in the dark, and the high on ketamine or choking on nightshade of the circumstances warranted it. It's dysregulating. There are new bird calls and car engines and gusts of wind to adjust to. New creaks on the floorboards, new ghosts to acquaint. New routes to inspect for evacuations. New views of moonlight and streams of sunlight through the windows in the morning. I think about the borders and who belongs where, who gets to stay and who gets to go. Fires and floods and wars and the way religion of capitalism and greed forcing people away from their connections to place. Who gets to own? Who moves from place to place, working to survive and pay the mortgages of others? Who gets to go and who be let in? New lands and make those places homes. Who gets to give themselves titles of lord and owner while the rest of the community is kept down like peasants? Who can I call myself? Where do I belong? I talked to my friend Redbird, a man native to and a steward to this land where we live, about what it feels like in your bones to feel at home in a place familiar to us through our ancestors. I'm currently neither at home here nor there, across the sea where my ancestors are buried, among the Scots pine and peat bogs and along the Black Forest. I imagine my cabin growing chicken legs, rising up, stepping with sharp talons down on the necks of the patriarchy, of the circus that is the American government. I imagine inviting men into my Baba Yaga hut to fuck and to poison, and maybe a little of both. Carrying their bones into the forest beyond my small home, stringing them in the trees to warn others of my wrath.
The Lighthouse, Point Bonita, Marine Headlands of California. An iron door opens to a dark tunnel through a giant rock chiseled a long time ago by bare hands and hand tools, hands that came from across the ocean, hands that chiseled through the continent, hands that built the railroad, Trans-America. A land these hands touched deeply, a land these hands died for, a land these hands survived, a land these hands grow to love and wanted to make home. The headland of the continent, America, a giant dark rock probing into the vast water, one side the raging ocean, the other side the calm bay. Entering the tunnel, the narrow path, my mind engulfed by darkness and the unknowing, floats in the suddenly edgeless universe. All senses seem lost, except one, that the world is split, one side the homeland, the other side the land of home. Until after arriving at the end of the tunnel, I see on the tip of the rock the end of the headland, bare in rain and wind, fog and cloud, sun and the moon is a lighthouse standing above the raging Pacific, like a heart beating to shine for both shores. It was after writing the first draft of this poem, I found out from Ranger Dennis Link that it's not recorded, but most likely a fact that the tunnel leading to Point Bonita Lighthouse was dug through with hand tools by Chinese railway builders, which took 6 weeks. The rocks were too loose to be safely worked on using machine tools without risking collapsing. And no other laborers were willing to do the dangerous job, except the Chinese immigrants who were very experienced with hand tools and worked extremely cheaply due to the fact that they were unwanted by the country after they helped to build the transcontinental railway. Around 90% of the railroad builders were Chinese, and about 3,000 of them died and were buried along the railroad. No records of their deaths were kept by the Pacific Central Railroad Company. Those who survived faced the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which denied them the rights to bring their family to America for decades. I'm sure many of them lingered along this shore, looking over to the other shore. And I hope today their spirit will hear this poem in their native language. 灯塔，铁门打开，黑暗的隧道，穿过很久以前以螺手和手把工具掘通的巨石，来自大洋彼岸，卓级横穿新大陆，修成太平洋铁路的辛劳之手，深深触摸过的大地，为之而死去的大地，幸存与思的大地，已然爱上的大地，期望成为家园的大地的夹角，巨大黑暗的岩石，美洲大地的夹角，深入广阔的水域，一侧是汹涌的大海，一侧是平静的海湾。进入狭窄的隧道，脑海被黑暗与无明吞噬，突然漂浮于无边的宇宙。万感顿失，唯存一念，世界是分裂的，一边是故乡，一边是家园，直到走出隧道的尽头，才豁然而见夹角之端，岩石之上裸露在风和雨、雾和云、日和月中，是伫立于汹涌的太平洋之上的灯塔，像一颗星，为此岸和彼岸无尽的跳动闪耀。Thank you.